The pediatrician read that printout 3 times before she said a single word, and I counted every second of her silence the way I used to count the gap between a lightning flash and the thunder behind it. 1, 2, 3. Long enough for a man to feel the floor tilt under a chair he was sitting perfectly still in. My grandson was asleep across my lap. Theo, 6 years old as of a week ago Sunday. Not the loose, twitchy sleep a kid falls into when he's bored in a waiting room. The heavy kind, the kind where the head rolls back and the mouth comes open and nothing you do gets a flicker. His sneaker had come untied and I hadn't noticed when. I noticed now. Funny what your eyes grab onto when your stomach is dropping through the floor of a clinic on the north side of Kokomo, Indiana, at 4:45 on a Wednesday. "Mr. Marsh," the doctor said. She set the paper down on the counter, real gentle, like it might wake him. "How long has Theo been drinking these morning shakes?" I looked at his face, then back at her. "I don't know," I said. "That's the whole reason I'm sitting here. You found your way to Dad's bold revenge, and I'm glad you did. Settle in. Every single person in the story I'm about to tell you had 100 chances to do right, and looked at every one of them and turned the other way. If you've got something to say when I'm done, the comment box is right down there, and the like button helps more folks find these. Now let me back this truck all the way up, because none of it makes sense unless I take you to the start. My name's Gideon Marsh. I'm 67. I spent 41 years pulling wire and chasing faults through houses and factories all over Howard County, and I'll tell you the one thing that trade beats into you. The trouble is almost never where the smoke is. The light flickers in the kitchen, and the fault's in a junction box, 2 rooms over that some fool buried behind drywall in 1974. You don't fix the flicker. You trace the current back to where it's actually wrong, and you don't stop till you find the bare copper. I should have remembered that sooner. I'm going to carry that. Theo's mama was my daughter-in-law, Bree, and she was sunshine in a sundress, I mean that. She married my son Wyatt when they were both 24, and she made him better than he'd ever have managed alone. She died 2 springs ago. Black ice on State Road 26 outside Lafayette, a county truck that didn't have its lights on, and that was that. Theo was 4. Wyatt was a ghost for about a year. He drives long haul, runs a dedicated lane for a freight company, 3-4 nights out at a stretch, and after Bree, the road was about the only place that didn't have her fingerprints on it, so he leaned into it. I understood. I didn't like it, but I understood. Then he met Camille. I want to be fair, because fair is the only thing that holds up later. Camille was easy to like at the front of it. Pretty in a put-together way, the kind of woman whose kitchen always smelled like a candle. She came into Wyatt's life when he was drowning, and she made the house run, packed the lunches, took Theo to his checkups, posted the little photos that made everybody say what a blessing for that family. Wyatt married her 14 months after they met. I stood up at the courthouse, and I shook her hand, and I meant the smile I gave her. I want that on the record. I wasn't looking for a villain. I was relieved my boy had somebody. Here's what I missed. Bree had life insurance, a policy with Theo as the beneficiary, set up in a trust for when he turned 18. And because she'd paid into the system her whole working life, Theo started getting Social Security survivor benefits every month after she passed, money meant to keep a motherless kid in shoes and groceries. There was a $5.29 his grandma and I had been feeding since the week he was born. None of that was a secret. None of it should have been a temptation. But money's like voltage. Doesn't matter how good your intentions are. Put it near the wrong person and it'll find a path to ground. I'd missed Theo's actual birthday, the 6th, the Sunday before all this. My knee had locked up bad, and I couldn't make the drive. And Camille had said, "Don't you worry about it. We'll do a little something quiet," and sent me one photo of a grocery store cake. I felt rotten about it for 3 days. So that Wednesday I loaded up the kid-sized fishing rod I'd bought him, red and white, with a little push-button reel his hands could actually work, and I drove the 40 minutes down to Lafayette to make it right. The plan was simple as Sunday. Give him his present, take him for a chocolate-dipped cone, let him tell me every single thing about turning 6 that I'd missed. Just be Grandpa. 3 days late. The leaves were already down all along 26. Real October in central Indiana. That wet pavement, wood smoke, the good worms leaving for the year smell. Camille opened the door with the phone wedged on her shoulder. "Oh, Gideon, hi." She did this little laugh like I'd caught her mid-something. "He's up in his room. I'm on with the insurance people. Give me a sec." And she drifted back into the kitchen, already talking again, and left me standing in the entryway holding a fishing rod with a bow on it like a sweepstakes prize nobody ordered. Insurance people. Filed that one away without even knowing I was filing it. Theo's room is the first door at the top of the stairs. He'd taped a crayon sign to it. VOS room. Knock. The C turned around backward. I knocked. Bud, it's Grandpa. Took a while. Then the door dragged open and there he stood, and something cold ran up the back of my neck, and I couldn't have told you why yet. He didn't look sick the way a kid looks sick. No fever, no snot, no flush. He looked switched off, eyes at half-mast like he was watching me through a screen door. He swayed a little, one hand on the doorframe to keep level. Grandpa. The smile came, but slow, lagging a half-second behind, like the line had a delay on it. Hey, birthday man. I got down on his level, which my knee had something to say about. Sorry I missed the big day. You still got any party left in you? He leaned on the frame. I'm just real sleepy. It was 3:20 in the afternoon. I came in and sat on the edge of his bed and handed him the rod, and he opened it slower than any 6-year-old has ever opened anything. But when he got the wrapping off and saw what it was, the real smile broke through. The whole face one, his mother's smile, and it about took my legs out. He had a stuffed fox he dragged everywhere, ratty thing he'd named Biscuit, and he set Biscuit up against the pillow so the fox could see the fishing rod, and then he went quiet. That specific quiet a kid gets when he's working up to saying something he's not sure he's allowed to. I waited. I've raised one of these. You wait. He climbed up next to me and put both little hands on my forearm and looked up to make double sure nobody else could hear. Grandpa, he whispered, can you tell her to stop putting the medicine in my breakfast shake? It makes my head feel like cotton and I don't like sleeping all day. I miss recess. I did not grab him. I did not raise my voice. I did not make him say it twice. 40 years of work taught my hands to stay still when the rest of me wants to come apart, because the man who flinches at a live panel is the man who gets hurt. I just nodded, slow, like he'd told me his shoelace was untied. Okay, buddy, I said, tell you what, let's go get that ice cream cone right now, just us. Grab Biscuit. I want you to understand something about me. I am not a man given to drama. But I know the way you know a circuit's wrong before your meter ever confirms it. A heat off a wire, a hum that shouldn't be there, a smell. My body knew before my mind would say it out loud. I carried him down the stairs because his legs were dragging, and Camille was at the kitchen island, laughing into her phone, scrolling something with her thumb. Gonna run Theo out for a birthday cone, I said. Just the two of us. Catch up. She flapped a hand at me without turning around. Sure, fine, have fun. Didn't ask where, didn't ask how long, didn't get off her phone to so much as wave at the kid. I buckled him into the back of my truck, a 2014 GMC Sierra the color of a nickel, still on his booster. Told me once it made him tall like a fireman. I pulled out of that subdivision doing the speed limit to the decimal, and I did not call my son, and I did not call the police. Not yet. First, I needed to know exactly what I was holding. You don't report a fault you can't prove. They'll bury it in drywall and tell you imagined the flicker. The urgent care I trust is back up in Kokomo, near my place, and the pediatrician there, Dr. Sandoval, had seen Theo for an ear thing the winter before. Straight shooter. Didn't talk down to a grandpa. I walked in, told the desk it couldn't wait, and when they took us back I told her word for word what the boy had whispered to me, and the slow eyes, and the way he'd moved all afternoon like he was underwater. She didn't give me the now, Grandpa, let's not overreact look I was braced for. She looked at Theo, who by then was sitting up on the table eating animal crackers out of a paper cup like it was the most regular Wednesday of his life, and she ordered a full panel. Urine, blood, a tox screen, the works. 40 minutes or so, she said. We waited. At about the half-hour mark he crawled off the table, curled into my side in the chair, and was gone. Out like somebody'd thrown a breaker. And I sat there holding my grandson and stared at a poster of the groups and thought about the fact that I almost stayed home that day on account of my knee. Almost made it the weekend instead. And I made myself stop thinking about almost, because almost is a door you can't ever close once you crack it. Then Dr. Sandoval came back with the printout and read it 3 times, and you already know about those 3 seconds. She turned the page around so I could read it myself. Doxylamine. You'd know it as the stuff in over-the-counter sleep pills. Unisum, the pink ones in the pharmacy aisle. Cheap, legal. Sitting on a shelf at any Walmart in America. Safe enough at the right dose for a grown adult who can't sleep. In a 40-pound 6-year-old in his breakfast, the levels she was reading were, her exact words, consistent with repeated administration over a sustained period. Not once, not an accident. Repeated, sustained. I read that line about 4 times. Then I folded my hands on my knee and I breathed, in through the nose, out through the mouth, the way you do when you've got a hot lead in one hand and you cannot afford to jerk. Is the mother in the home now? She asked, careful. Stepmother, I said. And yes, Mr. Marsh, I'm a mandated reporter. I have to make a call. I know you do. I met her eyes. He's not going back to that house tonight. He's coming home with me right now, and he is not leaving my sight. I'm not asking you to look away from anything. I'm asking you for a little time to put this together so airtight that nobody, not a lawyer, not my own son's broken heart, can talk it down to a misunderstanding. Give me till tomorrow evening. He'll be with me the whole way. She studied me a long beat. Whatever she saw must have told her I wasn't going to drive back to Lafayette and burn anything down with my bare hands, even though there was a part of me right then that wanted to. Tomorrow, 6 p.m., she said. If I haven't heard from you, I make the report myself, and I document that the child was removed to a safe relative today. She wrote something, and I'm keeping copies of all of this. You keep 10 copies, I said. We shook on it. I carried Theo out to the truck with Biscuit jammed under his arm, buckled him in, and drove the 19 minutes home with the radio off, letting the quiet do the one thing quiet's good for. It sorts things. By the time I pulled in my drive, I knew the order of operations, the same as I'd have known it standing in front of a dead panel. What do I know for sure? What do I still need? And what's the sequence? Because in my line of work, the sequence is everything. Pull the wrong wire first and you fry the whole job. What I knew: my grandson had been drugged on purpose over and over in the one house he was supposed to be safest. What I didn't know yet, how long, how deep, and the part that kept me up, why? Because cruelty for cruelty's sake I could have almost understood. What I found out was worse than that. I didn't sleep. I want to be clear, it wasn't because I was falling apart. Gideon Marsh does not fall apart on a Wednesday. I sat in my recliner with one lamp on, and a cup of coffee going cold, and I traced the circuit backward, slow, the way I'd trace a buzzing line through an old farmhouse. Every checkup Camille had taken him to instead of me. Every time the kid had been tired or fighting something. That phrase she used the second I came to the door: I'm on with the insurance people. Bree's policy, the survivor checks. It was all there, humming, and I'd walked past it for a year because I trusted the person standing on top of it. Quick favor before I take you any further. If a story like this means something to you, hit subscribe. It's free, takes a second, and it's the only reason channels like this keep running. Like the video, drop a comment. It genuinely helps. Now stay with me, because Thursday is where it turned. That morning Theo woke up brighter than I'd seen him in I don't know how long. One night off whatever she'd been feeding him, and the kid was back, chattering, hungry, asking could we go fishing today. I made him eggs he watched me crack with his own eyes, and after, I called my son. Not to tell him, not yet. I needed to hear his voice first, take his temperature, before I handed him something that was going to detonate his whole life. He picked up on the second ring, already on the road. I could hear the diesel under him. Hey Dad, everything good? Everything's fine, son. Hey, you notice anything off with Theo lately? Sleeping a lot? Slow? A pause. The good kind, where he's actually thinking instead of just being polite. Yeah, Camille said he's been napping a ton, growing spurt, maybe a little low iron. She had him at the doctor for it, I think. A beat. Why? There it was. Growth spurt. Bree dying had cost my son something, and one of the things it cost him was the nerve to question the woman who'd stepped in and made the chaos quiet. He'd looked at his own boy's slow eyes and let somebody else tell him what they meant, because the alternative was a kind of awake he couldn't afford on 4 hours sleep in a truck stop. That's not a bad father. That's a blindfolded one. There's a daylight difference, and I needed to hold on to it for what was coming. No reason, I said easy. Just got him for an early birthday do-over. Hey, how'd you feel about him staying with me a stretch? Week, 2 weeks. You're on the road, I miss him, I feel lousy about the party. Let me have my grandpa time. I could hear the smile come into his voice. Dad, he'd be over the moon. Let me square it with Camille. You do that, son. I hung up and sat with it. He'd ask the woman who'd been drugging his child for permission to keep his child safe, and he'd never know that's what he was doing. By 9, I was in a lawyer's office. Curtis Boyd, family law, a fella I'd wired a basement for years back and never forgot because he was the rare attorney who used 20 words where most used 200. I laid it all on his desk. The clinic visit, Dr. Sandoval's report, the photos I'd taken of the tox results. He put his readers on and didn't say one word for what felt like 10 minutes. Gideon, he said finally, you understand what this is. Child endangerment, neglect, endangerment could be aggravated depending on duration and intent. He took the glasses off. Who else knows? Me, the doctor. You. Not my son. Not yet. He nodded, slow. Good instinct. Before you tell him, you want it so documented he can't blink it away. A man hears this about his wife. His first move is to argue himself out of it. Take that exit away from him. He was right, and I told him so. Here's what I need, he said. Medical records, you've got those. Pharmacy purchase records, if we can pull them. A timeline. And eyes on that house. He slid a card across the desk before I'd finished nodding. Gus Tyndall, licensed investigations. Quiet, thorough, doesn't miss, Curtis said. And one more thing. He leaned in. When your son says yes about the boy staying, get that child out today and don't send him back. Whatever else happens, that's first. He's already at my house, I said. Curtis almost smiled. You've done this before. No, I said. But I've found a lot of faults other men buried. I want to answer something straight, because if you're like me, you're already asking it. The boy was never once left in a spot he shouldn't be. That Thursday and Friday were Lafayette's fall break, so he was home with me, fishing off the dock at the reservoir, eating too many of my pancakes. The one morning I had to meet Tyndall in person, it was a school day, and Theo was where a 6-year-old belongs at 10 in the morning. In his kindergarten class, which I drove him to myself and signed him in myself and stood in the lot till I watched the door close behind him. I picked him up myself, too. I didn't park my grandson with strangers to go play detective. He was the whole point. You don't set the reason you're working down on a stump to go do the work. Wyatt called back at 11:40. Camille's all for it, he said, and I could hear he had no idea what he was telling me. Said it'd be good for him to get out of the house, change of pace. She called it a little break for everybody. He chuckled. Honestly, Dad, I think she could use the quiet. A little break for everybody. She'd handed over a 6-year-old like a returned package. Didn't ask how long. Didn't ask to say goodnight to him on the phone. I filed that away with all the rest. Gus Tyndall called Friday evening. Mr. Marsh, I've got things. You want to do this in person. We met at a diner off the highway, one of those all-night places with the laminated menus. Stocky guy, the kind you'd never pick out of a crowd, which I expect is exactly the idea. He ordered coffee and slid a folder across the formica. I opened it, and I'll be honest, I had braced for one kind of ugly and gotten a different one. It wasn't a man. I mean, there was a man, I'll get to him, but that's not what stopped my heart. It was a GoFundMe page. Printed out screenshot after screenshot. A photo of Theo, my Theo, asleep on a couch looking gray and limp, under a headline begging strangers for help with his rare undiagnosed neurological condition. A long, weepy story about a brave little boy who sleeps 18 hours a day, who the doctors can't figure out, whose single working dad and devoted stepmom are drowning in medical costs. Camille's words. Camille's face in the family photo at the top. One arm around a boy she'd poisoned to make him photograph like he was dying. $41,000. That's what total strangers had given. Sympathetic people in Indiana and Ohio and Lord knows where, emptying their own thin wallets because a woman had drugged a child into looking like a tragedy. And it didn't stop there. Tyndall had pulled it apart. The survivor benefits, Bree's money, Theo's money, were getting moved out of the household account in regular chunks. The GoFundMe money never went near a hospital. It went to a separate account in Camille's maiden name. And out of that account, every couple weeks, a transfer to one Trent Sable, 35, who Tyndall's photos showed coming and going from a rented place across town in a way that wasn't friendly and wasn't family. Boyfriend. Co-pilot. He ran a medical fundraising consulting sideline, which is a polished way of saying he knew how to make a sob story collect. And the pharmacy records. That was the worst page. Tyndall had pulled the loyalty card history, a CVS over in Lafayette, a different one in West Lafayette so it wouldn't show up together, a Walmart. Pink boxes of doxylamine sleep tabs. Going back, regular as a utility bill, 7 months. How long? I asked him, though the paper had already told me. 7 months I can document hard, Gus said, both hands around the mug. The purchases line up with when the page started raising real money. He paused, picked his next words like a man stepping across ice. The drugging's not separate from the money. It is the money. A wide-awake, recess-loving 6-year-old doesn't fund a $40,000 emergency. A boy who sleeps all day does. I sat with that a long time. Tyndall didn't rush me. He drank his coffee and let an old man sit at a diner booth holding a thing no grandfather should ever have to hold. She hadn't done it in a fit of rage. She'd done it on a schedule. Drugged a grieving little boy down into a coma-colored prop, photographed him, and sold the picture to strangers' good hearts, and skimmed his dead mother's insurance off the top to feed it to a man across town. It wasn't hot. It was cold, and the cold of it is what I couldn't get past. "What's the boyfriend know?" I asked. Gus turned a page. "Enough, the two of them message about keeping him photogenic for the next round. Those are real words on a real screen, Mr. Marsh. I've got them." He looked at me level. He never once asked if the kid was actually all right. He asked when the next photo was coming. Two of them. Two grown adults who looked at a sleeping 6-year-old and saw a balance going up. And then there was my son, 3 states wide of any of it, hauling freight through the night to pay for a household being looted right under him. I paid for the coffee. "Gus," I said, "I need every bit of it locked down. Dates, screenshots, account numbers, the pharmacy trail. Airtight." "It already is," he said. "I don't do loose, good man." I drove home on the dark county roads with the window cracked. Theo was asleep in my guest room. Real sleep this time, the natural kind, biscuit tucked under his chin, his color good. I stood in the doorway a minute and listened to him breathe, even and easy, and then I went to my kitchen table and opened the same spiral notebook I used to keep my service logs in, and I started writing it all out in my own hand. Dates. What the doctor said. What Tyndall found. Every wire, traced, labeled, in order. The way I'd want it if I were handing the job to an inspector who didn't trust me and shouldn't have to. Then I called Curtis Boyd and left him one message. "We're ready to move." And then I called my son and told him to come home. Not why. Just, "Wyatt, I need you here Sunday. It's important. Don't bring her." He showed up Sunday evening, parked his pickup behind my truck, came up the walk loose and easy, jacket over his arm, thinking he'd been called home for supper, and maybe a talk about whether the boy could stay a 3rd week. He had no earthly idea. Theo was already down for the night in the back room. I'd made sure of it. What was about to happen at my table was not for a 6-year-old, not that night, not ever if I could help it. I'd made a pot of chili. I made chili for that boy every time the floor came out from under him. When he failed out his first year of trade school. When his first marriage went sideways before Bree, the night of Bree's funeral. I never told him it was a ritual. Some things you just do, quiet, and you don't explain them or they stop working. He came in and hugged me and looked around. "Smells like trouble," he said, grinning. "Where's the kid?" "Down already. He's doing good." "Wyatt, got his color back, eating like a horse?" "Good, he needed it." He sat down. "So what's the big mystery, Dad?" "Eat first," I said. He gave me that look he's given me since he was 12. "You're being weird, old man." But he picked up his spoon. I let him have his bowl. I let him have a second. I let him be comfortable in my kitchen one last time before I changed everything, because once I put what I was about to put on that table, he was never going to be quite that comfortable again. When he set his spoon down, I got up, went to the counter, and laid 3 things in front of him. Dr. Sandoval's report, Tyndall's folder, my notebook, and I sat back down and I did not say one word, because I taught that boy myself. When the evidence can talk, you keep your mouth shut and let it. He picked up the medical report first, the way you pick up something when you already half know you don't want to. He read it. His face didn't blow up. It went still, pond still, the kind of still right before a thing breaks the surface from underneath. He set it down and opened the folder, and the GoFundMe page was right on top, his son gray and limp under a stranger's pleas for money, and he made a sound I have not heard out of my son since he was a small boy. Just once. Then he closed it real careful and put both hands flat on the table and breathed. The refrigerator hummed. The clock over the stove ticked through what felt like an hour, and was probably 4 minutes. Then he stood up, slow, and said, "Give me a second, Dad," and walked down the hall to the bathroom and shut the door. I sat there and let him have it. "Take all the time you need, son." I refilled his sweet tea while I waited. When he came back, his eyes were red-rimmed and his voice was dead level. "Does Theo know what was in it?" "No," I said. "He knows it made his head feel like cotton, and he didn't like sleeping through recess. That's all." Wyatt nodded once. "Good. He doesn't need the rest." "Not yet." His jaw set. "Maybe not ever." And right there I saw my actual son come back into his own body. Not the hollow man who'd let the road raise his boy. Not the husband who'd filed his kid's slow eyes under growth spurt and climbed back in the cab. The father. He'd been in there the whole time. He just needed somebody to hand him the truth with the insulation stripped off. "How long have you known?" he asked. "Since Wednesday." You've been sitting on this 5 days. I needed it where you couldn't talk yourself out of it, I said. And where a court can't either. He was quiet. Then he let out a short breath that was almost, God help us, a laugh. You wired the whole house before you showed me the bad outlet. Force of habit, I said. He pushed the folder to the side and pulled out his phone. I need Curtis Boyd's number. And I need to not see her until I've got a lawyer standing next to me, because if I walk in there tonight, I'll do something that helps her and hurts Theo. He looked at me. That's right, isn't it? That's the move, I said. And that was my boy. He didn't go to Camille that night, or the next day. He stayed at my place and slept in his old room, and Monday morning he sat at my table and drank coffee and watched Theo March Biscuit around the kitchen narrating a fishing trip that hadn't happened yet. Just storing it up, the way you do when you've been reminded what you almost lost. He talked to Curtis twice. He moved the survivor benefits and what was left of Bree's trust into accounts Camille couldn't touch. He photographed every document in the home office on a quick swing through while she was out. Careful, sequenced. Not one wasted motion. He learned that from somewhere. He didn't confront her until Tuesday, after Theo was safe at my place, and the lawyer was on call. He drove down to Lafayette alone and sat across from Camille at that big island where she'd shot 100 photos for that page. And he told me about it that night, word for word, calm as a man reading a meter. She was scrolling her phone when he came in, smiled. You're back early. Normal as anything. He didn't say a word. He just slid Dr. Sandoval's report across the granite. She read it. Then she started talking fast, and that was her first mistake. She went straight to explaining instead of asking what he knew. Wyatt. Okay, he wasn't sleeping, and I read that a little bit could help him settle, and I should have told you, but you're never. He let it run out. Then he laid down the pharmacy printout. 7 months. 2 towns. Then the screenshots of the page. Then her own messages with Trent Sable about keeping the boy photogenic for the next round. The color went out of her face like somebody'd pulled the mane. I trusted you, Wyatt said. He never once raised his voice. He told me that part twice, like he needed me to believe it. With my son. With his mother's money. With her name on that page like she'd have ever. He stopped himself. Stood up. You took all 3. Wyatt, please, I love Theo. I would never. You drugged him. Flat. Even. For 7 months. So he'd photograph like he was dying. So strangers would pay for it. And you sent the money to that man. He picked his keys up off the counter. Whatever story you've got to tell yourself to sleep at night, that's yours to carry. Not his. Not mine, she said. Are you going to take him from me? He stopped at the door and turned around. He was never yours to take, he said. And he walked out. Now let me tell you how it actually ended. Because real justice doesn't come with music behind it. It comes with court dates and case numbers, and a whole lot of waiting in hallways on hard benches. But it comes. Dr. Sandoval's report had already gone to the state by the deadline she gave me. Exactly like she said it would. With a note that the child had been removed to a safe grandparent the same day she found it. Child Protective Services opened a case that afternoon. Because Wyatt was the boy's father and Camille only a stepmother with no legal custody, there was never any real fight over where Theo lived. He was Wyatt's, plain and simple, and he was already safe in my guest room with a stuffed fox. The criminal side is where it landed hard, and I won't pretend I'm sorry. The county prosecutor charged her with neglect of a dependent resulting in serious risk, a felony in Indiana, and the drugging, repeated and documented over 7 months, made it the aggravated kind. Then the fraud charges stacked on top, because soliciting $41,000 from the public with a manufactured medical story is theft and it's wire fraud, and the platform refunded every donor it could once the records came out. Trent Sable, the minute investigators came around, folded like a cheap lawn chair. Gave them dates, messages, the account he'd been receiving transfers in, all of it to save his own skin. Handed her over without a flicker. The coward did one useful thing in his life, which was make her conviction a sure thing. She took a plea in the end. They almost always do when the paper's airtight. Prison time. Restitution she'll be paying back long after she's out. A felony record that follows her into every job and every lease for the rest of her days. No more candle-smelling kitchen. No more good light and arranged coffee mugs. The house in Lafayette went in the divorce, and it sold by Christmas to a young couple who'll never know what happened at that island. Not with a scene. Not with me putting my hands on anybody. With paperwork and a judge and a prosecutor laying 7 months of pink boxes on a table. The way real things end. Theo lives with his dad now, full-time. Wyatt took a local route, home every night, less money, and he says it's the best raise he ever got. The boy's in first grade, never misses recess, and he's got the lungs and the legs to prove it. We took that fishing rod out to the reservoir the first warm Saturday of spring, and he caught a bluegill no bigger than my hand, and you'd have thought he'd landed a marlin. Biscuit watched from the tackle box. I think about how close it ran all the time. I almost stayed home that Wednesday. I almost made it the weekend. And the only reason I didn't lose him is that a 6-year-old, drugged half to sleep, found one clear minute and used it to whisper the truth to the one grown-up who'd actually crouch down and listen. So I'll leave you with the only thing I really know. The little ones will tell you. They'll tell you everything, in their own small words, if you're quiet enough and close enough and willing to hear it. Don't file the slow eyes under growth spurt. Don't drive home telling yourself you imagine the flicker. Get down on their level and listen, and then trace the trouble all the way back to the bare copper, no matter whose hand you find on it. If this one got to you, do me that small favor. Like it, subscribe, and leave a word below so it finds the next grandparent who needs to hear it. Thank you for sitting with me. I'll see you on the next one.